As everybody will have heard yesterday, we all know now, or should know, which tier we've gone into. Only 3 very small areas were in tier 1, so we will concentrate on the tiers 2 and 3 and wish those in tier 1 good luck to stay in tier 1 and to be able to enjoy some of the benefits that brings, and hope that everybody else in higher tiers can work towards reducing your tier levels so that everybody can get back to some level of normality. The new restrictions come into place on Wednesday the 2nd, when we can reopen. They are going to be reviewed every 14 days, so that the tiers we're in might well change every 14 days. So we need to be looking out for what we think might happen if we are going to have to change things quite rapidly on the changes of tiers. Restrictions from the information we've received are based on a quite complex matrix, and you'll have all heard in the press of the MPs that are wanting to know more detail as to why their areas have ended up in certain areas. It isn't just the case detection rates. It's a complex matrix of the case detection rates, the detection rates in over 60s, whether rates are falling or rising, the positivity rate, i.e. the number of positive cases being detected as a percentage of tests taken in any one area, and the pressure on the NHS in that particular area. We've added onto the slides 2 links here and here. One of them gives that detail, so if you're questioning yourselves why you are being held in a certain area, this might help you understand. It didn't really much to do with what we're about, but it does explain in a bit more detail why you might be in tier 3 or in tier 1 when your case rates are as low as those in Cornwall, the Isles of Scilly or the Isle of Wight. So it gives you more information to be able to help understand where we're at. And the other here gives the regions that everybody's in. So if we could move to the next slide, please. So what are those restrictions? Tier 1, which I said is only affecting 3 areas, and if hopefully people can move into it, your restrictions are far less than everybody else. In fact, we can hopefully look forward to some form of normality. Outdoor classes and organised adult sport can take place. Classes and organised adult sport must follow the rule of 6. This would mean people from different households could play, say, 3-on-3 volleyball or basketball, or 4 people from different households could play doubles tennis or badminton. Group activities such as training sessions and exercise classes can take place in larger groups, provided that they maintain social distancing. And indoor and outdoor organised activities for elite athletics, under 18s and disabled people can continue. And that follows through each of the other tiers. If we go to tier 2, which is probably half the country, outdoor classes and organised adult sports can take place. Indoors, classes and organised adult sport can take place for a household or bubble or in a group activity such as classes, provided there is no mixing between households. People can play certain sports which do not involve close proximity or physical contact. In other words, things like singles, tennis, or badminton matches. Indoor and outdoor sports can still take place for elite athletes, under 18s and disabled people with disabilities. Okay, the other thing to mention in that for 1 or 2 of our clients, there was also some issues. Those clients that have got theatre spaces, theatres in tier 2 can open so long as the maximum occupancy is no more than 1,000 or 50% of what your actual occupancy level is, clearly with all the other COVID controls in place to maintain social distancing, etc. If we could go to tier 3. For those unfortunate enough to have ended up in this tier, there are a lot more controls and it's a lot more restrictive. Classes and organised adult sport can take place, but people should avoid high risk contact activity. So those sports where people do end up through the very nature of the play ending up being in close contact to one another. Classes and organised adult sport cannot take place unless done with only people from the same household or bubble, i.e. And it's further down, group exercise classes in those areas and dance must not go ahead. Trampoline parks, indoor play, soft play, saunas and steam in those regions must also close, and any cafes that you have must also close. Indoor and outdoor sports, though, for elite athletes, under 18s and people with disabilities can continue. Okay, can we move to the next slide? And I'm sure there's going to be questions on this. So, slight update, just a review of one of the big questions that we got loads of queries on early on when this first came out, is about the tiers 1 and 2. Group exercise classes can go ahead in numbers of more than 6 as before. So COVID secure measures must be in place to ensure that social distancing is maintained. We don't want to see those pictures we showed on one of our previous clinics where there are a load of people standing around before or after the session, all chatting, all in close proximity. We have to comply with keeping people distanced. But in tiers 1 and 2, you can still go ahead with indoor exercise classes. We do know that UK Active, CIMSPA and the Exercise Music Dance Association are trying to ask government to see whether they will extend that to tier 3. I think from other things we've heard where they're refusing similar requests from hospitality, it's unlikely, but we'll watch this space, and clearly if we hear something on it, we'll put out an alert about that. Okay. In Wales, in the other devolved nations, Wales, we've heard there's been no update changes. Scotland, again, no update changes from last week. Similarly with the Republic of Ireland, and very sadly for Northern Ireland, they entered this morning another 2-week circuit breaker to bring down the growth in virus within Northern Ireland itself. So that's very sad. And we hope for them that it's successful and that they can get back to some level of normality and being able to open soon. So, face coverings, a refresher. And this is complicated. It's complicated in terms of some of the information that's been put out, and it's complicated in terms of what was actually written in statute in the law and what subsequently has been put out in the UK in various bits of guidance, including the guidance on actual wearing of face coverings. So just to be clear, in England, there is no mandatory indoor requirement for indoor fitness studios, gyms, dance studios, leisure centres, indoor swimming, water parks, fun fair, theme parks, etc. Nothing has changed following that original announcement. However, the guidance that came out this morning contradicts many of those issues, and it is guidance and it is our own view that it makes common sense to give confidence to our customers and to follow what's happening elsewhere, that we encourage the wearing of face masks up to the point of physical activity taking place, and particularly if you can't maintain or guarantee 2 metre social distancing being maintained. So next slide, please. In Wales, they are mandatory and must be kept on when preparing to exercise, changing or undertaking any activity that isn't strenuous. They may be removed when exercise. In Scotland, they're mandatory in indoor fitness studios, gyms, swimming pools, although they may be removed again when exercising. In Northern Ireland, they're not mandatory. Unfortunately, they're closed at the moment anyway, but when they come back, hopefully, but it's similar, they're not mandatory, but we would recommend for customer confidence and where people are getting used to wearing it, that we keep consistency, particularly where you've got different facilities. So if you've got a soft play within your building, you do have to require those going into the soft play area to wear them. So for consistency and customer confidence, we certainly would be recommending putting that into place and making sure there's some element of compulsion to get customers and staff when they're out and about to be wearing face coverings. Republic of Ireland, face coverings are not mandatory in gyms and leisure centres, but similar to what I've just said. So if we can move to the next slide. As I've just said, we would advise that face covering should be worn, even if it's not actual law. It certainly is guidance, and certainly we think for the good of the nation, the good of public health, and for gaining customer confidence, it's well worth doing. And I know we all want to get sites out of tier 3, and sites in tier 2 would love to be in tier 1. So if we can all work together and try to make that happen. Okay, you've moved on a slide, but that doesn't matter. I think I've covered all of that, so I think we can move to the next one. This is just an update. I know this raised a number of questions the last time we raised it. What actually is a face covering? Well, the ones in green show what are face coverings, and then the NHS one shows how badly people can wear face coverings and make them completely useless. And if we can go to the next slide, this was the one that created the most interest and most comments. PPE style face coverings are not, if they're medical grade, they should not be used. The one in the middle with the face covering, the guard, or the visor, that is not a face covering unless it is worn in conjunction with a face mask underneath. It's really to help prevent people with droplets being aimed at them or them firing droplets at other people. It does not stop aerosols. So that should not be worn on its own if you deem it necessary to wear one. And again, it shows you the good and the bad of from the NHS ones of how people should and shouldn't wear it. So if you've got staff, please make sure you bear those in mind when you're looking at whether of what staff are walking around with and whether they should be thinking about a more appropriate face covering than just the visors. So, okay, and I think it's over to Caroline now as we wait to watch all the questions roll in.
Just a quickie, because I know we haven't raised it this morning. Obviously, some people don't have to wear masks. And I think it's really important that staff are aware that your staff are aware that some people don't have to wear them, and that they don't go sort of shouting at somebody for not wearing their masks. So maybe worth just looking at the training that you've put in place so that the staff do know that there are certain categories of people that don't need to wear them, so they need to tread lightly. Okay, so in terms of right directions, a bit of an update, and this has been said every single time, so for those of you who've sat on clinics before, humble apologies. Please keep your eye on our Twitter and social media, LinkedIn, where we put our briefs. They also go on the website. So those go out not necessarily weekly, but when things change. So please keep an eye out for those. Follow us where you can, and we will be putting all of our updates on those feeds. Again, if you want any support, you want us to come in and check what you're doing, we do know that an awful lot of people have found those very valuable. And also all of our risk assessments and COVID risk assessments are being updated regularly, and they're all available on our Stitch platform. So if any of you are interested in seeing what Stitch is all about, please join us. We run clinics on a Monday at 2 o'clock, or if you're just feeling a bit miserable, by all means join another clinic. So that's our update on right directions things. Next slide. For those of you who are in Quest, haven't sat on one of our Quest Prime clinics yet, we've been delighted that Sport England have allowed us to roll out a new branding which is called Actively Ready. So we will be able to put window stickers up on our doors to show that the centres are as robust as they possibly can be. So if you'd like to join us for our next Quest Prime clinic, it's on the 16th of December at 10 o'clock. Just ping an email to info@questmbs and we'll get you registered on the clinic. We've had some pretty positive feedback. We go through all the guidance on the webinar of what's involved and what you'll be asked and the challenges that we will be asking your staff and you guys. Next update is training courses. Again, if you're interested, please let us know. We've we're launching the training. I have done all the training and I now feel very up to date on Legionella, which isn't my forte. So if any of you are keen to get your staff on training whilst they're furloughed, give us a shout and we can give you some more details. This presentation will go on our website and with a YouTube link, so you will be able to see this at a later date. So all the information obviously will be here available for you. So those are the training courses we will be launching, and I think they're pretty brilliant and very, very different from your normal ones, because we've made them specific to leisure. So and obviously we've put all of our experiences in and things we've seen. So hopefully you'll find them really useful. Our next clinic is going to be on the 8th of December. We were going to do one on Tuesday, but obviously that's going to be too close and we don't think things will have changed enough by then. So you'll be sitting and listening to us ramble on about the same things. So our next clinic will be on the 8th of December at 10 o'clock. So obviously please sign up for that. And don't go yet because we've got quite a lot of questions coming in. That was just to let you know when the next clinic was, but the questions are piling in now. So I'm going to hand over to Jill to come out with the first question.
Okay, lots of questions there, Ian. Yeah, I hope you're prepared. First question then, Ian, around swimming lessons. Adult swimming lessons, can they take place in Tier 3?
I think we still have to wait for clear guidance from the NGB on this. Our feeling probably is in Tier 3 no, but I'm not going to say definitively until we get more information coming out of the NGB. I don't think it's been clarified fully as yet.
Okay.
It's just one of these anomalies, and as we said, we knew that there's going to be lots of questions coming out of this, in that there's some lack of clarity in some of the guidance that's come out on these revised tiers.
Okay, thank you, Ian. What we will do is, as we see guidance coming out from the NGBs, we will use our social media and our information briefs just to let people know that guidance has come out. Okay, next question then, Ian. A question on changing rooms. This is from Wayne. They've still got the changing rooms closed, and they're now getting pressure from customers and maybe other people to open changing rooms. What's our stance on changing rooms? I know that we've some clients that have got them open, yeah, and we've got some clients that have still got them closed.
I think it's got to come down to your own assessments of how safely you can open them. There is no technical reason why, if you can ensure distancing and cleaning in between, that there is no reason why you shouldn't reopen changing rooms. You've got to think through the process on that. We've seen lots of good examples where people have numbered lockers and put stickers in cubicles that link to a locker that are then closed for the next group of people coming in. Lots of thought of going around trying to get people come activity ready, and then to those particularly who've swum to be able to have a quick shower. They've come out of chlorine water, they're going into a shower using soap and water. It should be one of the safer aspects of the facility, so long as you keep the numbers down and you control access and egress. But each centre is going to be different, because each centre is going to have different size changing rooms, and it's really up to you to try and work through whether you think you're in a position where you can open and meet that need without putting other people at risk by increasing infection rates, by people being too close together.
Thank you, Ian. Okay, next question. One-to-one personal training. Can this continue indoors in Tier 3 in a COVID secured gym setting?
Yeah, from our understanding that households and bubbles in Tier 3 can still take place. So a one-to-one personal training for a bubble or for one-to-one training can still take place indoors in tier 3. The only thing I would say about is what measures you've got to confirm that they are in a bubble, they are genuinely a household, and it's not a group of mates coming down pulling the wall that they're in a. And you can do that by looking at your CRM databases, etc. So you've got some form of control in place, so you know that you're remaining secure and meeting the outline of the guidance.
Thank you, Ian. I know we had a conversation about the next topic, saunas and steams, because we were quite surprised that they'd allowed them to open in tier 2. Somebody's asking, has anybody got any ideas or advice to how they can open sauna and steam rooms safely in tiers 1 and 2? What's our advice on that?
I think it would be good if other people can share that. I mean, I think for a lot of our clients, they've made the decision to keep them closed because of the financial implications of keeping them on. But it would be good to hear on the chat, or for anyone to come in if they want to put their hand up and maybe share any experiences that you've had, and whether it's financially viable, whether it helps member retention and selling members, and the processes you've gone through if you have reopened them, and whether it's worked. I think we've seen so few that have gone down that line, it's difficult to definitively say.
I think one thing which I've heard about saunas and steam rooms in that a lot of organisations that have opened them have gone to a booking system, so they can restrict the number of people.
Yeah, which we say have to do. So.
Yeah.
It is whether any have been successful and whether it's been worth doing it.
If anybody's got anything they'd like to share about sauna and steam, if you can put your hand up and we'll come back to you. That would be good if anybody could give us some input on how they've opened their saunas and steam rooms. Okay, next question. I think this one will be a bit easier for you, Ian, and we touched on it in the presentation. Tier 2 badminton, presumably one household could play another at doubles. So what's the guidance in tier 1 and 2 in badminton?
Absolutely. There's in the guidance, a household bubble can play organised adult sports. So badminton, a bubble could play, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've come to our first fitness class question, which I thought this would probably be at the top, but I think people are still confused a little bit about fitness classes and the numbers, particularly around this rule of 6 and how it was worded. Can you just go over fitness classes again in tier 1 and 2 and in tier 3? Is that okay?
Yeah, I think it is this where they've mentioned the rule of 6 for some reason in the tier 1, which confused us. The reality is you don't really get many people come down in groups. One personal exercise can still take place in tiers 1 and 2, so long as you are, and group exercise classes can, so long as you are maintaining social distancing of 2 meters and managing your egress and out. So I think the guidance has confused it by putting that word of not groups of 6 in. So to the best of our knowledge, you can still have indoor group activities, group exercise classes, so long as you're meeting your original COVID secure guidelines in tiers 1 and 2. Tiers 3, sadly, you can't, other than on the exemptions of either the 1-to-1 or the 1 to a household bubble that we talked about before, so long as you can confirm that.
Okay, thank you, Ian. I'm sure there may be some more questions on fitness classes, which we might come to. Okay, I don't know whether you're going to be able to answer this, or whether anybody on the clinic may be able to help us. But somebody has asked, tier 3, high risk contact? Has anybody got a definition? Have you got a definition for that, Ian?
No, I don't think that's been clarified, but I think the term of contact is those sports that are likely to be bumping into each other and under the 2 meters. So football, rugby, certainly, badminton, basketball, netball. They're games where you aren't necessarily going to be able to keep distanced, and the game rules are not defined to keep you distanced. So I don't think there is. We'll try and find one out, but I think in terms of risk assessment, it's got to be common sense against what you can work out is going to be the risks of transmission. And I would have thought all of those where people are going to come into closer contact, breathing more heavily, is likely to be fall under a definition that might fit within that.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Okay, back to swimming lessons. I know we touched on swimming lessons at the start of the questions around adults. We've got another question in on swimming lessons and clubs. Swimming lessons for clubs. Clubs. Will clubs, particularly maybe in Tier 3 swimming clubs, will they be allowed to operate?
To the best of our knowledge, for under 18s in Tier 3, they would be. We aren't sure above, because obviously I said in all of them that organised activities could continue for under 18s. But whether it extends to adults in Tier 3 is something that we would need to clarify, I think.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Again, like we said, once we know that guidance is coming out, please keep looking at our social media channels, and we're intending to send out an information brief on Monday, where we're hoping that a lot of the NGBs will have a chance to have updated their guidance. So please look out for those. Right, we're moving across to cafes now, Ian.
Yeah.
Really keeping you on your toes this morning. Cafes in Tier 3, do cafes have to close, or can they still do takeaways in Tier 3? And then we'll move on to Tier 2.
Yeah, our Tier 3 might have been a bit simplistic. They have to close for seated and eat-in. Tier 3 can still do takeaways, yes.
Okay, thank you. And Tier 2, can cafes open with table service for people sitting down together in households and support bubbles?
Only in households, yes. And I suppose that might extend to support bubbles, but again, it's how you prove it. So you just need to think how you're gonna do that.
Okay. Next question then. We're moving across to something that has been a question on most of our clinics around airflow. Any changes to airflow requirements in any of the tiers?
No.
It's not mentioned.
Yeah, no, there's been no update about air exchanges. I think that is now set. We know we've got to try as far as possible to increase airflow, and where you can't guarantee that, you should be trying to measure and monitor the build-up of CO2 within any area or room that activity is taking place. There's been no changes on that guidance. It's going to become more difficult. We realise that as the winter sets in and colder weather occurs. Okay,
thank you. So moving on, and this question's come from a manager at a trampoline park, but I do think this covers all of the facilities. So only families up to a size of 6 permitted to book for a trampoline park. What is a school class friend? What if a school class friend wants to attend with them?
Our view is they can't. If they've gone up to that permitted booking level, they can't. So. But
can we just clarify in? So the rule of 6, does that constitute families as well? So if I was a family of 8, if I'd got a husband and 6 children, does that mean that I couldn't exercise, go to trampoline park with all of my children?
I'd need some clarification on that, and we'd need to come back on that. I think if it's can prove it's a one bubble, potentially it can, but it can't then bolt on other school friends who wish to attend with them. Again, they'd have to prove that.
Okay. Right, thank you, Ian.
But I think we ought to clarify that rather than take that as a definitive response at the moment.
Yeah, but I think they need to live in the same house, don't they?
Yeah.
Students. But yeah, I think that's where we are. Okay. So somebody's asking for a little bit of clarification on changing rooms. So are we saying it's okay for customers to use communal showers in changing rooms?
So long as you create some way of distancing people, i.e. you take every other shower out, you control the numbers going in and out of it, then there is nothing, as far as we're aware in the guidance, that prohibits that.
Yeah, somebody's actually made a statement around that question, Ian, and it says, doesn't government guidance say dry side changing rooms need to be closed wherever possible?
It doesn't say that as far as we're aware.
Okay, thank you. Again, we've got a question and some clarification around personal training. So just for clarity, when Ian said that in Tier 3, personal training can continue in a household bubble, does that mean that if the personal trainer is not from the client's household, it can't go ahead?
I don't think it means that. I think a personal trainer can, so long as they're keeping socially distanced from that household bubble or that one-to-one, can go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. We've got another question in around NGBs. So some NGBs, e.g. England Squash, have yet to issue updated guidance. So this makes planning, advanced booking difficult when we're opening in 5 days' time. Government guidance isn't sport specific, so interpretation can be very challenging. I think that's where we are, Ian, and you're well under the spotlight today.
Yeah, I agree. It is extremely difficult, and whether that falls under one of those sports you would deem to be contact, and whether your risk assessment would deem it to be. Certainly squash between a household isn't a problem. Certainly in Tier 3 it would be, I don't think it would be acceptable. And even in Tier 2 it's not meant to be mixing between households. So I think that's something within your own risk assessments as to whether it's deemed to be contact would help you determine whether you think at this point, until we get formal clarification as to whether it's acceptable. If we go back to the original guidance that came out, that might give us some pointers.
Okay. Like I've said, as soon as we get any updates on NGBs, we will be pushing it out through our...
I do think squash is different than badminton and tennis, which is played the other side of a net from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the next question. You're certainly getting a mixed bag here today. We're now on to junior indoor roller skating. What is our thoughts on junior indoor roller skating in Tier 3?
Again, it comes back to, I think, in terms of junior activities under 18s, I know is it's whether you deem it to be organised activity. I think, again, we would want to go back and clarify that. I think you need to look at it in terms of your own risk assessments and the areas you're in as to whether you'll consider it's an increased risk in terms of contact. But it does say that under 18s, but it's related to organised activities. I think whether you would call a casual roller skating session and organised activity is something that we might need to think about and give some interpretation on.
Okay, thank you, Ian. I mean, a lot of these questions will be made clearer when additional guidance comes out, and as somebody's already said, it's very difficult for people when they're planning to open in the next 5 days. So please bear with us, and we will keep you informed as best as we can. We have got a statement here about changing rooms. Somebody's put in the chat that they think the changing room closure was from the original guidelines from UK Active, and we're not sure whether that's been updated. So it might have been NGB, UK Active, but that doesn't seem to have come through the government's website. Again, somebody's put a statement around squash that they might be in the know a little bit, saying that they think that they're only going to go with tier 2 and tier 1 for squash, and not tier 3. So watch this space on the English squash is guidance. We've got another question. If you are exempt from wearing a face covering, is there an indicator to that we should be asking? Is there something like a lanyard that people can wear, or what's your guidance, Ian? I mean, that's quite a really good question, actually.
Yeah, I think in some areas they have been issuing and giving people a card they can show, particularly related to public transport. It isn't clearly, it's not mandatory they wear that. And I think, as Caroline said, there's got to be an element of customer care here in terms of how you approach it. I think the aim has got to be to try to encourage as far as possible, but recognising that sometimes not everyone is going to be able to fall into the category of having to wear it. So I think it's just a common sense view on that. Clearly, if they've got the tag, but I don't think we should be berating people if they haven't got the evidence on them. I think that's got to be down to common sense and peer pressure, that the majority of people will comply with the guidance that's trying to be put out there across the country while we wait for the vaccines to come in and have some effect.
Caroline's just said, Ian, that she thinks there may be a government website where you can download information on exemptions for face covering. So that might be something we need to look at and get the link and get that out to people. So thank you. We've got a question around group activities again. So indoor group activities are not allowed in tier 3. However, if we have an outside area within our facility, can we run gym classes socially distanced outside? That's quite a difficult one, and I don't think we looked at that, did we?
Tier 3, just looking at the guidance. Outdoors classes and organised adult sport can take place, but people should avoid higher risk contact activity.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, so the answer is yes.
Yes, you can. That's good. Okay, we've got some information from a skating rink. So we've been told by DCMS that as skating rinks are closed, then under 18s exemptions doesn't apply if the venue is closed. I'm assuming that skating rinks also cover roller skating rinks. Hope that helps with the group training for roller skating people. So maybe we've got something to draw on there against roller skating. A statement from somebody. Tesco's are giving free sunflower lanyards to show masks don't need to be worn. So maybe encourage people to go to Tesco's and get a lanyard. Caroline says no, she doesn't like Tesco's. Maybe we can encourage the other supermarkets to give them free as well.
Hi, how are you?
I think somebody is not muted.
Okay. We have a question around staff and face coverings, Ian. What about staff who are not comfortable wearing a face covering?
I think that's got to be down to the individual risk assessments with the sites, trying to understand why they're not comfortable. If they're in one of the categories that are recommended not to, then clearly that's understandable. But if they're out and about around a centre presenting your organisation, it's something you need to talk through with them and the reasons why they don't want to do that. I don't think there's... I don't know whether anyone else can help me. I'm not sure it is compulsory that you have to make staff wear them, but I would certainly strongly advise, if you're trying to keep customer confidence up, it's something that you might wish to consider.
Thank you, Ian. And unless I've missed anything, we've come to the end of the questions.
There was enough there, wasn't there?
You've had a real grilling today, particularly when we already knew that the NGBs haven't had time to update the guidance. Something's just come in through the chat from our team, Ian, on face coverings for staff. I think Ian's actually just frozen. Oh, you're back.
No, I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Which one are you talking about?
That it's not compulsory, but it's best practice for staff to wear face coverings.
Yeah, which is what I'm saying.
Which is what our
And
staff.
one of our clever members of staff has just put on our chat that we've got behind the scenes that just said he knew it would all end in tears. So, sorry.
Very funny. Okay, unless there is any more questions from anybody, then what I will do now is pass you across to Caroline to close the clinic.
Thank you everybody for joining us. I think that's quite clever. It's funny, I said this morning that the play on word on tears is quite apt, really. I think the whole, as we said earlier on, tears is something I'm sure we're all suffering from at some point in the last 7 months. Good luck everybody with reopening your facilities next week. Hope it all goes well. I must admit I'm booked on my very first spinning class on Wednesday. I've missed the leisure centre like mad, so I'm delighted that we're going to be going back and back into leisure centres. So good luck everybody. We wish you all the very, very best. Make sure your staff are updated on any changes that you've made and that your risk assessments are up to date. And from there, thank you very much, Jan, as always, for helping us with the clinic. And Ian, very much thank you for presenting, and we'll see you all a week on Tuesday. Take care, everybody. Thanks. Bye.